What do a vanished pilot, a group of hikers found dead in the snow, and a family whose children disappeared without a trace have in common? Today, we're diving into the three most unsettling unsolved mysteries of the last century: the Dyatlov Pass incident, the disappearance of Frederick Valentich, and the haunting Sodder children case. The Dyatlov Pass incident, Russia, 1959. In the frozen heart of the Ural Mountains, under howling winds of a Russian winter, a mystery was born that has baffled experts for more than 6 decades. On January 25, 1959, Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student, led 8 experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute on what was meant to be a thrilling challenge, a ski expedition through the treacherous northern Urals. The group included 7 men and 2 women, all young, fit, and highly skilled in survival techniques. Their destination? Otorten, a remote mountain whose name in the local Mansi language ominously means "don't go there." The hikers carried journals, cameras, and supplies to last weeks. They were last seen alive on January 31st, pitching their tent on the eastern slope of Kholat Shakal, a name that translates to Mountain of the Dead. They chose the spot because of the worsening weather, planning to cross the next day. They never made it. When the hikers missed their return date, families grew worried. On February 20, a massive rescue operation began involving volunteers, students, and later the Soviet military. What they found on February 26 shocked them all. The group's tents stood abandoned, partially collapsed, and slashed open from the inside as if the occupants were clawing their way out in panic. Inside were boots, heavy coats, and gear they would need to survive, but the hikers were gone. Tracks in the snow told a chilling story. Footprints, some barefoot, some in socks, leaning downhill towards a dense forest nearly a mile away. No sign of a struggle, just a quiet exodus into temperatures plummeting to minus 30 degrees centigrade or minus 22 Fahrenheit. Search teams followed the tracks and made a series of grim discoveries. 2 bodies lying near a cedar tree barefoot, dressed in only underwear. Their hands were burned as if they tried to climb a tree or build a desperate fire to survive. 3 more bodies were found spaced along the route back to the tent, as if they had died trying to crawl to safety. Months later, as the snow began to melt, the last 4 were discovered in a ravine under 13 feet of snow. Their injuries stunned investigators. One had a fractured skull so severe it resembled a car accident. 2 had multiple broken ribs and crushed chests, but no external wounds. And 1 woman was missing her eyes, tongue, and part of her lips. Another man was missing his eyes and another his eyebrows. And as if that wasn't enough, radiation was detected on some of their clothing. What happened to these hikers? The Soviet government quickly shut the case with a vague conclusion. An unknown compelling force led the hikers to flee the tent and die. But the details refused to stay buried. Avalanche theory, popular for years, but why leave the tent barefoot instead of digging out supplies? Why slash it from the inside instead of calmly exiting? Military experiments. The region was near testing grounds for parachute mines, silent aerial bombs that could explain internal injuries without surface wounds. Radiation traces. Some speculate the hikers stumbled upon a secret weapons test. Paranormal whispers. From UFO sightings to the Mansi tribe's Mountain of the Dead curse. A Yeti. Some of the hikers wrote in jest about snowmen in their journals, a joke or a hint of what they saw. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case and concluded the deaths were caused by a slab avalanche, a rare phenomenon where a block of snow shifts suddenly, forcing the group to flee. But skeptics argue that this doesn't explain the injuries, missing body parts, or radiation. How did they suffer these fatal injuries with no other footprint tracks around? What made them flee their tent so unprepared? The Dyatlov Pass incident remains an open wound in the library of unsolved mysteries. So what do you think? A freak of nature, a military secret gone wrong, or something stranger? Drop your theory in the comments because this case may never be closed. The disappearance of Frederick, Valentich, Australia, 1978. October 21st, 1978, early evening. The sky over southern Australia was calm, the visibility perfect. But within an hour, a young pilot would vanish, leaving behind only a chilling transmission and one of the most puzzling mysteries in aviation history. At 7:06 p.m., 20-year-old Frederick Valentich, an enthusiastic but relatively inexperienced pilot with about 150 hours of flying time, departed Moorabbin Airport in Melbourne in a small Cessna 182L. His destination, King Island, across the Bass Strait, a notoriously unpredictable stretch of water between Victoria and Tasmania. The conditions that evening were reported as ideal for flying: light winds, clear skies, and no expected turbulence. Valentich's flight plan was ordinary, but his mindset was anything but. According to friends and family, Frederick was fascinated by UFOs and even carried clippings about them. He once told his girlfriend he believed in extraterrestrials, adding that if he ever encountered one, I'd go for it. 7:12 p.m. Valentich calmly radioed Melbourne flight service. Is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet? The controller replied, negative. Valentich then added, I'm observing an unidentified aircraft. It seems to be playing some sort of game with me. Over the next 6 minutes, his tone shifted from curiosity to alarmed. He reported, the object had 4 bright landing lights, it orbited above him, and its speed and maneuvers were beyond anything he recognized. It's not an aircraft, he said, his voice tightening with fear. At 7:20 p.m., after a series of increasingly frantic exchanges, Valentich uttered his last words. It's not an aircraft, it's... Then silence. The frequency captured 17 seconds of a strange metallic scraping sound described as like someone flexing metal sheets underwater. Then nothing. When Valentich failed to arrive, massive search efforts launched across the Bass Strait and its rugged coastline. For 5 days, planes scoured the waters, ships combed the surface, divers plunged into the depths. No wreckage, no debris, no oil slick, no trace of Frederick or his Cessna were ever found. The official report concluded with a haunting phrase, cause of disappearance, unknown. Theories and strange clues range from spatial disorientation. Some argue that Valentich was flying upside down and mistook the reflections on the water for UFO lights, but this theory is weak. His plane's gravity-fed fuel system would have failed quick. Suicide or stage vanishing. Investigators found no evidence of distress in Valentich's personal life. Alien encounter. Over 20 UFO sightings reported along the coast that night. Witnesses claimed to see a green light moving erratically near Bass Strait. Magnetic anomalies. The area is a hotspot for compass malfunctions similar to the Bermuda Triangle. Even decades later, no physical evidence has surfaced, only Valentich's eerie radio exchange, preserved as a permanent enigma. So what happened over the Bass Strait that night? A tragic accident, a hoax, or proof that something beyond our world took an interest in one young pilot? What do you think? The Sodder Children Mystery, West Virginia, USA, 1945. Christmas Eve 1945, while most homes in Fayetteville, West Virginia glowed with festive warmth, the Sodder's family night of celebration turned into one of America's most enduring mysteries. George and Jenny Sodder were Italian immigrants who built a life in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George had emigrated from Sardinia as a teenager and became a successful businessman, owning a small coal trucking company. Jenny was known for her warmth and devotion to her family. They were well respected in the community, though George was outspoken, especially about politics, which sometimes caused friction. The Sodders had 10 children, ranging from toddlers to young adults. Education was important to them. The older children attended school regularly, while some of the younger ones helped out at home or occasionally assisted with the family business. Their home was lively and close-knit. Christmas 1945 was no exception. Stockings hung by the fireplace, gifts were scattered across the floor, and the air buzzed with holiday excitement. On that bitter winter night around 10 p.m., Jenny allowed the younger children to stay out later than usual to play with the new toys, while the older kids lingered nearby chatting. George and two of the older boys headed to bed first. The rest of the household slowly settled down for the night. Before retiring, Jenny made the children promise to lock the doors and turn off the lights. Then came a strange chain of events that would turn their lives into one of America's most enduring mysteries. A phone call after midnight, a woman asking Jenny for someone she didn't know, followed by muffled laughter and a click. A loud thud on the roof, like something rolling off and hitting the ground. Moments later, smoke, thick and fast, curling from the wooden floors. Jenny screamed for George. He gathered 4 children and Jenny, and together they fled into the freezing night air. But 5 children remained inside: Maurice, 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jenny, 8, and Betty, 5. Panic surged through George as the flames devoured the wooden staircase, the only part of the second floor where his children slept. Without hesitation, he smashed a window, shards slicing into his arm. The heat was unbearable, smoke choking his lungs. Still, he tried to climb inside, but a wall of fire forced him back. Heart pounding, George sprinted to the family's work trucks just steps away. He had used them countless times for his coal business. They always started on first try. His plan was simple: back one up to the house and scramble to the upper windows. But when he turned the key, nothing. Dead. He tried the second truck, also lifeless. Both vehicles had run perfectly earlier that day. Desperation clawed at him. He ran to the rain barrel, hoping to throw water on the flames, only to find it frozen solid under the winter frost. Every second felt like an eternity as the inferno raged, bright against the night sky, crackling and spitting embers into the snow. Jenny stood outside barefoot, clutching the youngest child she had carried out, her sobs piercing the night. The family could only watch in horror as their home collapsed in on itself, timbers groaning, fire roaring like a living thing. Within 45 minutes, the Sodder home was nothing more than a heap of smouldering ruins. When the volunteer fire department finally arrived, hours later, it was far too late for rescue, too late for answers. At first light, firefighters sift through the blackened debris. George and Jenny waited with hollow eyes, clinging to hope that at least something, anything, would remain of their 5 missing children: Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty. But there was nothing. No bones, no teeth, no fragments of skull or tissue. The fire had been intense, but experts would later testify that even at extreme heat, bones, especially from children, do not completely disintegrate. Yet the rubble yielded nothing but ash and twisted metal. Authorities moved to quickly close the case. Their conclusion? Faulty wiring caused the blaze. Death certificates for all 5 children were issued within days. But George and Jenny couldn't accept it. How could 5 bodies vanish without a trace? Where were the bones? The questions haunted them, gnawed at them, and they vowed to find the truth no matter the cost. Theories and strange clues included a cut phone line. Investigators found that the family's phone line had been cut, not burned. The mysterious visitor. Days earlier, a stranger had approached George, warning him that his house would go up in smoke and that his children would be destroyed if he didn't buy life insurance. Sightings. In the weeks after, witnesses reported seeing the Sodder children. One claimed to see them in a passing car during the fire. Another said they were a tourist stop with an Italian-speaking woman. The photograph. In 1968, more than 20 years later, Jenny received an envelope in the mail. Inside, a photo of a man in his 20s with a handwritten note. Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, little boys A90132 or 35. Was it their missing son? The handwriting and photo raised more questions than answers. The Sodders erected a billboard on Route 16 begging for leads. It stayed up for decades, a haunting plea for answers that never came. Theories still debated. As the years passed and answers never came, speculation grew, and so did the theories. Mafia involvement. George was no stranger to strong opinions. In the months before the fire, he openly criticized Benito Mussolini, even in a community where many still held loyalty to the Italian dictator. Some believe this public defiance put him on a hit list. Others pointed to George's growing success as a businessman in an era when organized crime had its grip on many Italian-American communities. Refusing to pay protection money could be dangerous. Was the fire a warning, or worse, an act of revenge? Human trafficking or kidnapping. Witness reports added fuel to this theory. Several people claimed to have seen the Sodder children alive days, even weeks after the fire. A woman at a Charleston hotel insisted that she saw 4 children accompanied by 2 unfamiliar adults. Another witness spotted a car leaving the scene of the night of the fire, its passengers peering anxiously out the windows. Could the blaze be a cover for an abduction? Foul play and hidden evidence. Even the official investigation raised questions. Why did Fire Chief F.J. Morris allegedly admit months later that he had found a box in the ashes containing what he claimed remains of the Sodder children, but never reported it? The box, when examined decades later, was revealed to hold animal organs, not human. If Morris knew, why lie? Was someone trying to close the case permanently? Forensics tests in later years brought no clarity. No bones were ever conclusively identified belonging to the Sodder children. Despite private investigations, rumors of mob connections, and even FBI involvement, the case remains unsolved. For George and Jenny, life after the fire was consumed by a single purpose: finding their children. They rebuilt their lives in a modest home, but their world was never the same. For decades, they chased every lead, no matter how far-fetched. They hired private investigators, wrote letters to the FBI, and traveled across states following rumors. What was their fate? George died in 1969, his grief unresolved. Jenny kept the search alive until her death in 1989, wearing black for the rest of her life as a symbol of mourning. Even in their absence, the mystery lived on, passed down to their surviving children, who continued to seek the truth. Today, more than 75 years later, the case remains one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries, a story of love, loss, and questions that refuse to fade. Were the Sodder children consumed by the fire or stolen away into the shadows? So what do you think about that one? Were the Sodder children victims of a tragic house fire, or was something more sinister going on? Which story intrigued you the most? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe my new channel, and I really like your support. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next Sunday for more chilling tales.